Hello and welcome once again to the Progressions of Consciousness radio program. I'm your host, Keith David Henry, and you're on the Community Listening Network, www.clnradio.com. We've been talking in the last few sessions about the concept of the avatar. And the avatar is a virtual representation of some other thing. And when you think about it, you have to wonder, when you look in the mirror, who is it that looks back? Who is it that evaluates what you see in the mirror? Who is it that makes judgments about what we see around us? Well, that's all conditioning. That's all things that you were taught, the way of looking at things that you believe are real, because you can take two people and have them discuss the same subject, and they will both have extremely different views of it. And they can argue all day, and each one believing the other is wrong, and when the truth of the matter is that each just has their own perspective about things. And I mentioned in prior programs that this thing that we call physical reality is not real at all, but that it is spirit. Now, there are some very important things to discuss, because even though this realm that we live in, that we call physical reality, is neither physical nor real, there's some things that need to be discussed about it. For instance, you have a man who takes a gun and shoots another man, and that man bleeds and he dies. Well, if this realm is not real and is just some nebulous spacey thing, how is it that this thing happens? Here's the important thing that many people have missed about our purpose here on this planet. This physical reality was created with certain rules. It was created so that the experience would seem real. But in reality, no one dies. There's simply a transfer of energy from one place to another. There's no such thing as death. But for the experience in this realm to be real, certain rules were put into place for it to seem absolutely real to the avatar. The thing that you must keep in mind is that this realm was never designed to be a place where people murdered and killed each other, and that where there was constant pain and destruction and fear. These things came about under the influence of the dark oligarchy, who's using the rules and manipulating the rules, not directly, but by conditioning us to destroy each other. The idea was not to experience pain and agony and fear, but to experience joy and peace and love. But now, here's the hitch, and this is something that may twist your brain a little bit. It is impossible to experience joy without experiencing pain. It's impossible to experience love without experiencing hate. The two need each other. So that the question must be raised then, these entities who are here that have perverted this realm, that have turned it upside down, have they perhaps actually done the consciousness of the world a favor? Have they in some ways been responsible for the greatest feelings of joy and pleasure? And is it not possible that their time has come to an end, and that their influence is fading away, and out of pure desperation they have implemented all of these programs, the New World Order, the Illuminati, war, pestilence, famine. Out of sheer desperation, they're trying everything they can to keep the new age from coming into place. Is it possible that they're trying to use us, our fears, to collectively keep us from understanding that that old age of destruction and fear and death and pain is over? We don't need that teacher anymore. How are we going to experience as a collective, how are we going to experience the greatness of the pleasure and the creativity and the expansive growth that we have decidedly come here to experience as avatars? And the avatar, yes, you're an avatar, I'm an avatar, but who are you and who am I? I'm not my ego. I'm not who I think I am. I am a unique expression of Source. I am Source manifest in a unique expression. You are also Source manifest in a unique expression. I have made statements in the past along the lines that the Aquarian age brings with it, among other things, the age of that unique expression, that avatar, that relationship of Source who is all and is everything and all in all, and yet has expressed itself through an avatar that has the gift of individuality, that has the gift of subjectivity, and that through expressing that individuality, that subjectivity, that imaginative search, if you will, that through tapping into that we enhance the whole. But I want to really be clear about this, that the expansion of the whole is not the goal. Please hear me. The expansion of the whole is not the goal. It is the ultimate expression. It is the ultimate result. Don't think of it as, okay, I'm exploring my individuality so I can enhance the whole. You're missing the point. You're expressing your individuality and your subjectivity because that's what you're here to do. And when you do what you're here to do, the whole is naturally benefited. There is no cause and effect here. There is no goal here. The only goal is experience. And the greatest experience is the one where the individual reaches into their unique relationship with God, with Source, and becomes what they were designed to be, and what they came here to be, and that is an explorer. You are an individual expression of God, of Source, that is here to explore, that is here to become imaginative and explore to the nth degree that subjectivity that you were gifted with. And when you do that, your discoveries and your growth just contributes to the whole. Again, it's very important that you realize that contributing to the whole is not the goal. Contributing to the whole is what happens when you fulfill what you and God have agreed is your mission here. Now do you understand why I'm so hard on religion and other social and community organizations and orders? Because they are designed to have you behave in a way that they tell you to behave. They most vehemently discourage individual creativity, individual discovery. You are to do what you're told, and if you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, well, here's the book. You do what I tell you the book says you are supposed to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to hell. Do you understand now why I so desperately try to relay the message that the God that created you, the God who is you in human form, which is what Jesus was trying to teach us, and I don't know how that message got so screwed up. Jesus said, "As I am, so are you." Jesus was God in the flesh. Jesus was an avatar. Well, so are we. We are sons of God. There was never any separation. There was never any sin that somehow made us not children of God or not worthy of God. The only thing that stood between us and God, and is the same today, is our perspective about who we are. And the question about good and evil, you can ask that question, and the question has been debated ad infinitum. And it's a question that I don't believe will ever be answered in this realm. The only thing that we can do, and there are more and more of us waking up and understanding this, is that we need to pursue what it is that God has given us to pursue. Forget about what other people think about it, because the nature of what God is having you do, not only is it unique to you, so that no one will ever heard of it. In fact, many people you try to share with it will think you're crazy, or they'll pat you on the back and say, well, good luck with that. But it is the only thing that you are here to do. And if someone else tries to do what you're doing, it will fail miserably, because that's not what they are here to do. They are here to do what is unique to them and their unique relationship with God and with Source. But how are they ever to explore and to come to any understanding whatsoever of what their purpose here on earth is, if they're busy reading from a book that's telling them what they're supposed to do? And there are certain provisions that God has given us, that Source has given us. Mother Earth is replete with tools that allow us to explore that intuition. I've talked about it before. There's just amazing, incredible, magical powers that exist in nature that we have been taught are taboo. And who has taught us that these things are taboo? Religion has taught us that these things are taboo, because if you ever reached into those things and became aware of the magic that surrounds you, it could drastically change your view of the world and of God and of yourself. But as long as you're afraid of touching those things, as long as you're afraid that stepping outside the bounds of what your religion tells you is right or good, as long as that fear can control you, your chances of discovering that unique job, if you will, that unique purpose for you and you alone on earth, your chances of discovering that become very, very slim. And you're stuck with many other people on the planet wondering what in the world is going on, why is the world the way it is, what is the sense of loneliness and separation and fear, and is the only remedy to that believing in Jesus Christ? And for many people, that is a valid way of expressing themselves and expressing their spirituality and understanding, more than anything else, understanding who God is. And, you know, if you don't understand that the words of Jesus and the activities of Jesus were for one thing and one thing only, and that was to teach you who you were with relationship to God. If you don't understand that, if you think the message is do what God tells you or you're going to hell, you have completely missed the boat. But if you understand that what Jesus was teaching was that you are children of God, you are God's children, you are beautiful, creative beings, and the religion that is surrounding you is trying to keep you from understanding that. Don't you see that Jesus' message was the same? Religion is going to stifle you. The religion that you hold so dear is going to destroy your potential for understanding who you are and what your unique purpose on earth is. There are 7 billion people on earth, and there are 7 billion unique purposes on earth. Imagine if all 7 billion people became intimately in touch with Source and became intimately in touch with their purpose here. Imagine the exponential, explosive growth that the human race could experience. This is the purpose of the Avatar. The purpose of the Avatar is a way for the perfect Source to experience subjectivity through each of the 7 billion avatars. It is so simple. It is so beautiful. It is so elegant. It is so transcendent, so amazing, and yet it has been reduced to a set of doctrines that ultimately has been used to squelch that relationship and to claim that in order for us to experience that oneness and that beautiful connectedness with God, we must somehow reestablish some connection that was lost. That is poppycock. That is poppycock. It's pure, unadulterated lies designed to keep us from experiencing that personal empowerment, that individual relationship and connectedness with God that ultimately results in the transformation of the human race with such speed and beauty and in such an exponential way that the world will be something that has never been seen before. This is the Aquarian Age. This is what we have entered. And this is what we each as an individual person must come to realize. That is up to us to shed the mental chains of conditioning and fear of hell and fear of being different, and to reach into that very difference and to become and experience the avatar as Source designed it to be, in beauty and power and grace. And in some ways, when I think about it, it's difficult for me to reconcile how such pain and misery in the past could have been such a contributing factor to the ultimate beauty of the age we're entering. And I'm not going to pretend to understand it, but what I will say is we are here now. And as individuals, it's such an easy thing to do. You may be sitting alone. Someday you may be driving down the road. You may be at work. It only takes a second. Reach into whoever you believe is God, or whatever you believe is God, and forget everything you think you know about God, your doctrine, your belief, your teaching, and remember and hold fast these things: that God loves you, that God doesn't need anything from you, God is perfect, that God has your best interest at heart. In that context, turn toward God and say, what am I here for? And sincerely mean it, and forget what your church told you you were here for. Throw it away for a second. It's not easy to do, but if you can do it for 1 second or 2 seconds or 10 seconds, if you can throw that away, then ask that question: what am I here for? And I'm ready to do it. One of the most difficult things about religion is people say, well, God, what do you want me to do? And they have these pictures of, the Old Testament where, God told somebody to go and, face the lion in the lion's den. And, what if I don't have the faith? What if I get eaten up? But the purpose that you are here for is what you're here for, is what you were built to do. It is perfect for you. shed, like I said, you don't have to contemplate for half an hour. If you can shed all of your ideals, I'm not saying throw them away, just for a second, shed them as if they mean nothing, and just keep in mind those few things about God, and ask that question, then you have opened the door. This is the Progressions of Consciousness radio program. We're on the Community Listening Network, www.clnradio.com. You know, many people, conscientious people throughout history, have looked at the world and they've seen the disarray and the darkness, and they've said, I'm only one person, what can I do? And you've had certain people that have, you know, moved in a certain direction, and their goal was to change the world, and they've had a certain modicum of success. Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and these were great men who had great effect. But after these men died, things went back to what they were. Their goal of changing the world may not have been what they suspected. It is the individual movement of the individual avatar in this age of Aquarius that changes everything. And the point is, you don't have to worry about what's happening. You don't have to be thinking about, oh, how can I change this? How can I bring about peace in the world? How can I bring about world peace or joy or love on a worldwide basis? You're missing the point entirely. You are not here to change the world. You are here to do what you came to do. And when you do that, you change the world. It is so simple, and we have been so steered away from that by so many ways, by education, by religion, by society, by politics. All of these things have steered us away from the simple truth that you are not here to change the world. You are here to do what you came to do. And this world responds to that by adjusting the entire world. It is not your responsibility to change the world. It is your responsibility to be who you came to be. And the natural and beautiful result of that is that the world changes. I can hear people say, how can you say that what Dr. King didn't change the world? Well, maybe they're not letting dogs loose on black people anymore. Maybe they're not setting hoses on people anymore, but there's still racism. There's still institutionalized racism. But what's worse is that the very movements that were designed as civil rights movements have kept racism going, have kept the hatred going. And it's such a perversion, such a terrible, terrible perversion, that people don't even realize what's going on. Why is racism still so strong in this country? It's very simple. Because it's being fed, it's being nurtured, it's being coddled for the sake of a few people who like to show up on television and pretend that there's some sort of civil rights advocates, when really All they are is opportunists that have gained wealth and a name for themselves on the backs of their own people. And it's so disgusting, I can't think of words for it. Dr. King would turn over in his grave if he knew what people were doing in his name. So it's not that their work was in vain, that Dr. King's work was in vain. It's just that people are people. And despite our best efforts, we're still in a world where people are greedy and evil. Dr. King once said, I have a dream. And his dream was a very simple dream, where black children and white children were playing together because they didn't understand racism. There was no idea that one was better than the other because of the color of their skin. And Dr. King saw this. It was real to him. He knew it was coming. And it is here today. You go to today's school campuses and college campuses, and you go into Manhattan and you watch people intermingling. You don't see racism. You see groups of people of all colors gathering together and enjoying life together. Is that something that Dr. King did? Or is that something that Dr. King saw, and saw as his job to pursue, to tell people what was going to happen? Dr. King was not a creator of this beauty. He was a messenger to tell people what was coming. And those that were in tune and understood and agreed with his message were willing to face violence so that the world could hear his message. Think of yourself as a Martin Luther King Jr. There's a vision within you that you may not even know is there because it's been so suppressed by some doctrine or teaching or some ideal about who you're supposed to be. This is where the Aquarian age brings hope, because we're entering the very age that nurtures the beauty and the power of the individual and funnels it into the whole. It's nothing you have to create. It's nothing you have to do. You only have to be who you are as an individual and discover what you're here for. It is actually that simple. I'm not quite sure if I can really find the words to express the profundity of this principle. I know it sounds foreign because it's a new age. And in the old age, the way you dealt with issues was you would gather sufficient numbers and then you would attack the problem. And if you had enough power, enough strength, you could bring about some modicum of change. And it's a good feeling to be a part of that. But for those of us whose heart is in the Aquarian age, especially if you're an indigo child, if you were born in the 50s or 60s, and there are a lot of indigo children that are coming in today, well, we set the groundwork for them. We set the stage for them. We were here to change the energy of the world, not by doing some sort of grand meditation. No, just by our presence. Do you see how that works? There's nothing you can do to change the world. Just by your presence, things happen. And this is the beautiful simplicity that we have not been told. We have been told lies. We've not been told the truth. Think about it. There are those of us whose hearts have literally broken within us. Some of us have wept bitterly, not for ourselves, but for the state of the world and for all the pain and the misery. And we've agonized. What can I do? What can I do to change this world? And the answer is, do what you've come to do. And what you've come to do may have necessarily nothing to do with the particular thing that causes you pain to think about. For instance, what you've come to do may have nothing to do with war or famine. But how fantastic is it that just by doing what you came to do, you can affect war and famine? It's amazing. It's so profound. People need to understand this. This is the age of Aquarius. In my Progressions of Consciousness chart, I actually changed I added a subtitle, and I've called it the subtitle, The Architecture of the Avatar. And I'll give you a moment if you want to look at the chart. You can visit my site, www.don'treadthisbook.net/chart, and it will bring up that graphic. I just want to remind everyone that you're listening to the Progressions of Consciousness radio program. I'm your host, Keith David Henry, and we're on the Community Listening Network, www.clnradio.com. Mother Earth is very much connected to us, just as we are connected to each other. And if I haven't said this enough, let me please reiterate that anything that you are doing to try to bring about unity amongst your brothers and sisters is a completely wasted effort, because you cannot bring about anything more than perfect unity, which already exists among us. It is the perception of separation that is the problem. But for you to try to affect the perception of the whole world that has been programmed for eons is really just is really a ridiculous concept to try to do that. I applaud people that are trying to do it, because in their heart they're sincere and they want to see the world change, but you're going about it using weapons that were given to you by the very people that caused the disarray. You need to understand that. They're having you use weapons that they know will not succeed. The idea of fighting something, going against something, for starters, is a misnomer, because when you attack something, when you go against something, you simply give it strength. You don't diminish it, you make it more powerful. So the weapons that we've tried to use historically have never worked. The only people it's worked for is the military industrial complex that is making hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe it's up to trillions of dollars a year now, on wars that have no purpose except to generate revenue for the banksters and the industrial military complex. And yet you have hordes of people laboring under the idea of patriotism, sending their sons and their daughters to war. And many parents know that it's nothing but a sham, but the advertising is focusing on the kids who they don't know anything. They don't understand life or the world or what it is. And it's such a shame, because once they get out there, they realize what it really is, but it's too late. It's too late. So if you've gone to the chart, you'll see that there are 4 or 5 different there are 4 images that represent my idea of who the avatar is, of who we are as individuals in relation to each other and relation to God. And I have spent quite a bit of time on this. I thought it would be interesting if anyone might be so inclined. I have not, in my model, I have not incorporated any of the other subtle bodies, just the physical, which is a subtle body, which I've discussed before. So I think it might be interesting for someone to extrapolate on my model and to superimpose the other subtle bodies into the model and to extrapolate on that model. And that's what this chart is designed to do, is designed to encourage critical thought about who we are. It's not designed as a new doctrine or a new teaching. All it is a thought and an image and an ideal that I was inspired to create. But in this model, you'll see that the greatest power, the greatest enlightenment occurs when the avatar realizes that he or she is one with Source. And when you think about yourself as a person living in this world, the most accurate way to think about it is that you are God manifest in a physical, if you will, representation that is designed not to foster a sense of separation, but to foster a sense of subjectivity. This is the great lie, and this is the subtlety of the lie, because there is a fine line between separation and subjectivity. And it's an easy line to take advantage of. We are not separate, we are subjective. And it can be very difficult to wrap the mind around the idea of not being separate yet being subjective. How can that be? It's because the subjectivity is the design goal of Source for the sake of expansion, for the sake of growth. And that can only happen in one way. That can only happen if there is a means of experiencing things. Source doesn't need to experience anything. Source doesn't experience. Source simply is. So what did Source do? Source expressed itself in infinite forms and infinite expressions. There's not more than one. There's not you and me. The idea of you and me are illusions. But it's a very handy illusion for the sake of growth and for the sake of expansion. And this is where we are as avatars. So in the slumber state, we're stuck in this kind of scary, spooky idea of spirit. We are aware of each other. We're aware of ourselves. We have this body. We have a perception, which is a very nebulous thing. We have an ego, which is built and constructed of many things, not the least of which is our experiences. And then we have this physical brain that somehow synthesizes all of this and brings it together. But the brain is nothing but a hunk of flesh. Where is the consciousness? Where does that come from? I mean, we have these senses, touch, taste, feel, smell, that we can enjoy the fruits of those things. But where does that come from? What part of us experiences that stimuli? Well, that's source having a blast experiencing subjectivity through us, the avatar. And that's what we're here for. If you go down to the second chart, in the awakened state, you start becoming aware in your mental construct, in the ego, in the mind, in the perception, that there's more than just this physical reality. And please allow me to reiterate that the physical reality is not physical at all. And, you know, the goal of so many is to reach the realm of the spirit. And I want to tell you that we are already there. We're in the spirit right now. The only part of us that is damaged is the perception. And the perception does not create anything. It does not bring about any reality. It just opens our mind to the possibility of realities that are beyond what we're used to thinking about. Well, that's step one. Source is pure consciousness. And in the experiment of subjectivity, Source said, I am going to divide myself. And the very seed of that division became spirit and mind, manifestation and expression. It's duality. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves with the New Age movement, is because they're constantly talking about moving away from duality. Well, that's the exact opposite of what we're here for. We're here to experience duality and subjectivity. What we have not been told, or what we've been lied to about, is we do not see the difference between subjectivity and duality and separation. There's a huge difference. Separation does not exist. Separation is a lie. Duality does exist. It was designed to foster subjectivity. So going to the third image, we begin to come into certain understanding of who we are, who this avatar is. And it expands the mind. It expands that which has been tampered with, which is the perception. And when we get to the final stage of the awakened state, the namaste state, you have a bunch of avatars running around being individuals and subjective, all contributing to Source, yet being individuals and subjective. That is the goal. And guess what? there is no ceiling to this. There is no end to this. It just keeps going, and as it goes, it grows exponentially. And as that exponential growth explodes, it begins to explode in such a way that the growth is happening so quickly that you begin to have a group of beings who now can create their own planets and create their own universes and create their own experiments with human consciousness. This is where we're headed in the Aquarian Age. And that's not going to happen if you try to abandon the ego. Sorry, New Age movement. It's not going to happen if you try to abandon or throw out duality. Sorry, New Age movement. That's the exact opposite of what we're here to do. We're here to experience duality. We're here to experience subjectivity and the growth that that affords. And we're not here to do that by trying to change those things that surround us. Once again, I know I'm being repetitive, but it's the only way that I can express the profundity of this concept, that change does not occur by trying to affect that which is around you. Now, let me hasten to add, what you are here to do, most obviously and specifically, is going to affect people around you. What I'm saying is, what a person does as part of what they are here to do as a revelation of God or Source directly to them and with them, what that person does is having effects on the world that they could never imagine or possibly plan or possibly think could ever happen as a result of them simply doing what they are here to do. That's the magic of it. That's the power of it. And that's the freedom of it. You're listening to the Progressions of Consciousness Internet radio program. My name is Keith David Henry, and we are on the Community Listening Network, www.clnradio.com. I would like to remind everyone about my website, www.don'treadthisbook.net. Some people have tried to find me at www.don'treadthisbook.com. You won't find me there. It's don'treadthisbook.net. On that site, you'll find a wealth of information about, among other things, things that are happening in the world that have been misrepresented to us. And you'll find truth on that site that, quite frankly, will frighten you if you take it as fact, or it might frighten you. I want to reiterate again, for those that have gone to the site, that this site is not designed to frighten you, is not designed to give you a woe is me feeling. There's one purpose for this site, and that is to tell you and to show you that the things that you have held to be true and the most dearly held things in your life that you felt and were taught are truth are complete and utter lies. And the idea is to wake people up, to make them turn away from the institution, turn away from religion and politics, and turn toward God and or source. And I do tend to steer away from the word God and use the word source, because there's so much baggage attached to the word God, and there are many people that when they hear the word God, they're instantly turned off, and I can't say that I blame them. So I do prefer to use the word source. So, once you've discovered that every direction you look in, you've been lied to and are still being lied to, and the things that you felt were truth are abject lies, where do you go from there? Well, there's only one place to go, and that is source. And I'm not talking about religion, I'm not talking about a doctrine, I'm talking about an individual connectedness with source that has nothing whatever to do with anyone else's connectedness to source. It has nothing whatever to do with what some religion is telling you about source. That the connectedness that you have with source is unique to you, and that if you were to come to a point where you fully understood what that connectedness was, the nature of that connectedness was with you and source, and what you were here to do, that 99% of the people that you told about it would not understand it. Well, let's say 90% wouldn't understand it. 10% would try to resist you or would mock you because it sounds so strange. But the beauty of it is that that connectedness with source, and that individual connectedness with source, that you as the avatar, and you can take as much time as you want trying to figure out where quote unquote you end and the source begins, and I dare say you might find that quite a mental challenge to understand. But that cultivation of that connectedness with you and source, and that walking in that which source has for you to do, will accomplish changing the world in a way that you could not imagine. But please remember that changing the world is not the goal. The goal is to do what you're here to do. This is the Progressions of Consciousness radio program. I'm your host, Keith David Henry. We're on the Community Listening Network, www.clnradio.com. I'll see you next time.